Hello, welcome back to Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I will be using animation nodes and audio nodes to create random noise. Um, so yeah, the setup is actually super simple. There's something unique in animation nodes, um, something called transform object. So this is actually really interesting. It's I mentioned it in the past. It's almost like a kind of like a the nodes that kind of simply transform an object without any value input. So you don't need to have frame. You don't need to have anything. You just provide it with a compose matrix and then translate the objects or something, and that object will keep moving. So based on that idea, so we can actually have something that's quite interesting. So I don't have. You can see here the timeline is actually it's not doing any playback. I'm just gonna stop that. And what's gonna happen if when I start to plug this, it's gonna create this noise, right? And if I turn on always, let me turn off one of them. So you can see Susan head is moving ups and down, right? I can slow it down. This one is also moving, but it's more like random. so I set up the execution of animation nodes as always. So it's gonna try to do this as fast as possible. I can enable frame. So if I enable frame, I need to have the frame running, so the head will move. But in this case, I don't have the timeline playing. I just enable always, and now you can see this Susan starting to move and make sound. Right? And I can, at any time, I can adjust the frequency, for example. Let's make a and the Susan head here in this in this case is just like an indicator. Excuse me. And I can change this to different type of sound. Let's give it a sine wave for now. Let's do it like this and make this smaller value. So it's really nice. It's almost like it's like an indicator for the sound. And so this is, let me explain what's actually happening. Let me disconnect this. Okay, Susan head making frequency that goes from 100 to 300 and goes back to 100, and it's keep looping over and over again. And I can change the speed, so this one can go faster while this one is keeping its own speed, and everything is basically kind of like a loop. And that's actually work thanks to this node right here, transform objects. So this node will generate value that keeps going. So if the actual value is actually this guy over here. So this there's a Susan head that's actually hidden, and let me reset that head if I can. So I select the head and then reset it. So there's Susan head that's kind of moving. So there you go. So it's moving and keep moving and keep moving until it disappears, right? So that Susan head is actually controlling the frequency of oscillator of audio nodes. Okay, so that's the secret. And I hide, there are two heads, kind of like a dummy heads, and then this Susan head. So You can create something similar using Python and animation nodes, script nodes. Basically, you have a value that it keeps on growing over time, even though you don't have timeline playing back. So it's almost like a game engine kind of a idea. So it's like a loop. It kind of imagine like a gear, clock gear, like, or maybe like a sun that goes ups and down like day and night, that keeps rotating even though there is no energy. It's a kind of like that kind of life form. So with the first head, I have, of course, this modulo, and the modulo will keep the value looping. So with this modulo 10, it's gonna go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and goes back to 0. I map the range. So if I do this properly, and then I plug this into this expression, and this expression is controlling the frequency of the oscillator of the audio nodes. And the speed of Suzanne, this dummy Suzanne, will affect the sound, the frequency. Same thing with the other guy, except the other one is just like random value. You can see from the value here. The other one, similar setup with a different dummy Susan head. And this one, I randomize the number so it's between 300 to 600 frequency. And this one is controlling the frequency of this node. Oops. And I can control the speed. And the amplitude. So it's not too noisy. But now we have two Susan head. One is kind of going up and snap back to 0. And the other one is just random frequency. And I can change the value here. And as you can see, there is no animation playing. So let me disconnect this. So based on this experiment now, we can actually really control almost pretty much anything. If I want to change this to maybe EV, kind of making like a light, we can actually do that. We can control that, and I think this is a interesting setup. Turn off always. If I turn off always, it's gonna stop everything. A better setup, I think, is maybe using script node, where I can just turn on and off the kind of like a toggle on and off for the two heads, and then controlling the frequency. So yeah, I guess I will continue playing with this idea. Maybe at some point I will actually use grease pencil, kind of like draw random grease pencil and make sound based on that. So yeah, this is random frequency, and this one is kind of escalating frequency created using animation nodes. So again, playback is not running, and if I turn this on, it start moving. This is an indicator for the frequency. When I plug this, and this is thanks to animation nodes and the audio nodes. Okay, you have to install these nodes first. It's kind of interesting. So you can have this and present it to your friend, or I'll try to make a setup that use Eevee. But anyway, yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.